Hey guys, good morning. My name is Kiera. Feel free to call me Q, and welcome to my garden. So today is April 30th, and so we're going to take another look around and see just what our garden looks like in this, I think it's the 6th week of spring here in California, Zone 9B. If you're not familiar with what the zone numbers mean, that is basically a way to tell you how cold it gets essentially in your climate. So it's based on the amount of frost days that you have during your winter time. So that's all that is. So basically the higher the number, the less the least amount of days that you have below freezing in your zone. So we're zone 9, and so overall we have a pretty temperate winter, pretty warm winter as far as winters go here, and it gets pretty hot in the summertime. But anyway, so that's what the zones are. This week was a pretty chill week as far as projects and stuff. We got a couple things going that I want to show you that weren't here last week. But for the most part, we've just been relaxing. So it's been really nice to be enjoying the garden and just kind of watching it grow. So let's take a look around and see where everything is at and see what's changed since last week. Starting on our patio, in our usual spot, we have our blackberry wall. And overall, it's doing pretty well. It looks really happy. And we are starting to get what looks like flower buds. So there's actually a lot on here. Remy is thirsty. He's decided now is the time to drink water. But anyway, we have a lot of buds on here. And so hopefully pretty soon we'll be getting blackberries. So that's exciting. This is our strawberry green stalk. No strawberries yet, but a lot of the flowers are starting to lose their petals. So they first have these little white petals. Let me see if I can find one. There actually isn't. Oh, here's one back here. So you can see there, this one is like losing its petals. And so I think what happens after that is the little green parts there become strawberries. So we're getting closer. Hasn't happened yet, but we're getting closer. And then over here, this is fun. So our blackberries are all kind of behind this pillar here and they're trellised up, but we've also had a few go rogue. So we have all of these little baby blackberry, thornless blackberry plants here. And we're probably going to try and dig these up and transplant them so that we can extend the wall either this way or on, more likely on the other side of the wall. But we have a bunch of little baby plants here, and there's even a little guy over there. The other green stalk is also doing nicely. We haven't harvested anything from here. We just kind of leave it. These are all of our winter or cool weather crops, I guess you should say. Now, some of these things are looking a little rough around the edges, but for the most part, they're still kicking in there. Here's our herb bed. I did a bunch of cleanup around it yesterday, so I cleared up a bunch of really tall weeds and stuff like that that were kind of choking things out and taking over. But this is our herb bed from a different view than we normally have. So we have in here green onion. Behind it we have, with the white flowers, that is thyme, sage, something that I thought maybe might be a chamomile, but I'm not sure. It kind of looks like chamomile sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. So it might just be a weed. But I did notice the other day that there were ladybug larvae on here. And actually, there's a ladybug right there. Originally, I was going to take this out because I thought it was maybe just a weed and I was waiting for it to flower to really find out. But I might just leave it anyway so the ladybugs can have this for a little while until we have more flowers in our garden. This is our cilantro. We have harvested a ton of cilantro in the last month. And you can see here, I did a hard chop a couple weeks ago and now it's starting to really bolt. So this is done. We could leave this and get coriander seeds from it once it completely finishes flowering and drying out and all of that. But we have a lot of coriander right now, and so I might just take this out pretty soon here. And then this is also green onion, and it is starting to flower. And we've never actually had a green onion flower before. So I haven't decided if I'm going to take this out or leave it, because I kind of think onion flowers are pretty cool. So a lot of the reason why our cilantro is bolting, and some of the cilantro and a lot of the things in our cool weather green stock are looking a little rough right now is we actually had a few days in the 90s this week. So it just got really hot for about, I want to say 3 or 4 days. And then this week it's actually going to be cooler. So this week we're going back into like the high 60s, high 70s, around there. And so I might leave that cilantro and give it another week just to see what it does as far as production in the next week, to see if we can get anything else off of it. But it is also bolting, so it might just be done. So we'll see. Oh, I just looked back and I saw something really cool. Let me show you. So if you have never seen one before, because it looks kind of wild, this is what a ladybug larva looks like. Looks nothing like a ladybug. The first time I saw this plant, it was in our old garden at our old house. I was like, what is that? And we put a picture of it on forums and people told us it was a ladybug larva. We had no idea, but yeah, that's what a ladybug looks like before it's a ladybug. It's kind of wild. Over here we have our apricot tree. Oh, I also see a ladybug on there. That's awesome. We have ladybugs everywhere. So our apricot tree is doing really well. There's not a ton of fruit on it, but it's still really pretty. It still looks really healthy. So maybe it's just having kind of an off year. I don't know. We had a pretty wild winter this year where it was just cold for a lot longer than we thought it would be. And so maybe a lot of the flowers fell off after that. I'm not sure. But our apricot is doing well. This is our sickly peach tree. It has a leaf curl on it, so it is affecting photosynthesis, but we were told it shouldn't affect the fruit. And the fruit is growing a lot in size. So you can see here, it's a lot bigger than it was. Let's see if I can get this to focus. So yeah, it's getting there. It's getting bigger. The bottom part of this tree looks pretty bad, but it's hanging in there and still producing fruit. So we'll see how it does. And we're just kind of watching it, and we're definitely gonna baby it in the come fall and winter time. And next up we have our very majestic, very awesome grapevines. So there are 2 grapevines on this side that are really mature and established. And then we have one little one that we put in over here a couple months ago. They're both doing really well, and they both are just kind of like giving off tendrils like crazy. And what we think, oh yeah, this is definitely grapes. There we go. So they have these clusters everywhere. So it's just covered in these clusters. And the grapes that came off of this last year were really, really good. So we've been excited and waiting for this. The thing about these grapes last year is we were eating them regularly as just kind of like table snacking grapes, and they're really good. But at a certain point, we were really tired of grapes, and it was also a really busy season in life for us. And so at a certain point at the end of the season, we just kind of let them all go, and just kind of left them on the plant, and just kind of like gave up on it, which we were totally fine with that decision. We had a lot of things going on. But this year, what I would love to do is preserve as much of it as possible. And so we're definitely going to have more than we can eat as far as table grapes. But what I really want to do too is try and make jelly out of it also this year, or maybe juice some of it. We'll see what we end up doing. But this year, I want to get as much as possible off of these plants instead of just letting it go to waste. The birds ate some of it and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of it we were just picking off at the end of the season when the plant went dormant. And I think we can do better this year. We'll see. Over here in this kind of bed that existed when we bought the house, we took the wood off of it. We've been just growing a few things here. This onion we didn't actually put here. It was already here. it kind of, we thought it was a green onion that kind of looks like garlic to me because of the curly top here, but I'm not sure. So if you happen to know, let me know if you know exactly what that is. But it looks this looks kind of like a garlic scape to me, except it's not curly. So anyway, I'm not sure. We'll find out. And then here's our other grape. It's doing really well. This plant has never looked like this. We had it in a pot for a couple years before this, and it just struggled. But now it is green and lovely, and it is actually producing grapes. So this will be the first time we get grapes off of this plant, which is really exciting. And it's even starting to branch out over here. So this is looking really good. Right here in this little area right here, I decided to plant a black seedless watermelon, and then I put this kind of tomato cage here, one so that we know and we remember where I put this until it sprouts, so we don't accidentally like mow it or weed whack it or anything like that, and also to just kind of keep Remy from tromping on it. So this was a black seedless watermelon that we actually got from the farmer's market, and I saved the seeds for it. So I have no idea if this is going to grow or not, but I put like 4 or 5 seeds in there just in case. So we'll see what we get out of that. Here, Andrew just planted this. We got this start from the farmer's market last week, and I want to say that this is a variegated thyme, but I have to ask him, and because I forget exactly what he picked up, but it's really pretty. I love the kind of the yellow tips on the leaves there. Then here right next to it is our lavender. We didn't put this here. This was already here. And they're super happy, so we're leaving them there. But the bees usually are covering these things, so it's just really pretty. I definitely want to get more of this and put it other places in the garden. Next up, we have our Meyer lemon tree. This is a tree that we had in a pot for, I want to say, 3 years, and it always struggled. And this is the best this tree has ever looked. So once you plant stuff, it gets a lot happier. This is definitely flowering too. It's really pretty flowers. So now that I'm not as close to the tree, I don't know if you can see it as well, but here it is right here. One thing that used to happen with this tree was when we had it in a pot, we used to bring it inside over the winter at our old house. And what would happen in like the end of January, early February, is it would actually flower in our garage because it was a little bit warmer in the garage, but it wasn't ready yet to actually go outside. And so we'd have all these flowers on it, but it was too early to actually put it outside because we would still have cold weather. And so then all the flowers would kind of, they'd bloom and die off in our garage before it was ever outside. So it never actually got pollinated or anything like that. And then we might end up lucky and get like 1 lemon or 1 really small lime off of the lime tree that we also have here. But yeah, it was always really sad. We never really expected to get anything, and we were just kind of holding on to these trees until we could have a place to really plant them. And so I'm really glad that now we do. It looks really happy now. It's flowering around-ish the same time as our other citrus. Our other citrus had a couple weeks head start on it, but those are also much more mature plants. And like I said, this is the best that this little tree has ever looked. So I'm really hopeful that it's gonna be really happy here. This is our probably navel orange tree, and it's covered in flowers that are massive. You can see here. And it smells amazing. You can actually smell these trees all the way up to our house and across the yard. So it smells fantastic. But yeah, this thing is covered in flowers and covered in bees usually. And then next to it, we have our cutie tree, our clementine, and a lot of the flowers are starting to dry out on these. And so if you look here, where the flowers were, there's the start of fruit. So we'll see how much of this actually gets pollinated. This thing is covered in flowers, and so we're probably going to have to thin some of them out, but it's really happy and healthy. It's doing its thing. Oh, I forgot to mention, so underneath this uh, probably navel orange tree, we had an oregano that we brought with us in a pot from our old house, and we thought it had mostly died, but we noticed last week that it actually was coming back. And so what we did was we split it up and we planted some here. And I don't remember where Andrew put the other parts of it, but this right here is oregano, and he put down cardboard and kind of like did sticks around it to keep the grass down, to kind of give it a fighting chance. And then as it gets bigger and it spreads, we'll give it more and more space so that it'll kind of be a kind of like lower level layer underneath this tree. But this is oregano that I started from seed 2 years ago, and it was massive at our last house. So it's exciting to have that again, to know that it's still surviving after 2 years. Now across on the other side of the yard, we have our lime tree. It is also looking very happy, happier than it's ever looked before. And it is also flowering. This is another one that used to flower in the pot in the garage before it was warm enough to put it outside, and so we never really got anything off this. I think we got one very small lime that was not very usable. We tried to use it, but it wasn't great. And then this is a very sticky weed that I've been pulling them up everywhere, but they stick to everything and they're pretty annoying, but they're easy to take up, which is nice. But anyway, it's our lime tree, nice and green, happy. Next to the lime tree, we have a gala apple tree. This is one that we planted here. We got it new a couple months ago, so it's overall doing really well. I don't see any flowers on it. So there's a little bit of discoloration here on the leaves, and so I have to look that up and see. Might be time to, it's about time to fertilize it again. We'll be fertilizing everything next week, but I don't remember if these trees were on a monthly schedule, so I'll have to look it up. But I will look up and see what's going on with these leaves here, because it wasn't like that last week. But overall, this one's looking good. And here's one thing that actually, none of this was here last week. So what we did was we created a bed in our kind of like perennial loop. And since we had the extra space and there was nothing perennial here, what I wanted to do was just have more space to plant more tomato plants. And so this trellis is all Roma tomatoes. So these are determinate tomatoes, which means they grow to a determined height. For these, it's about 4 to 6 feet. And we don't prune these except for the leaves on the bottom, but basically kind of like the suckers and everything, you're supposed to leave them. So these are going to get a lot shorter, but we thought it might be really nice to have them here to, one, use the space, and also to kind of create another garden wall, which is really nice. And then in the back here, I planted just extra basil plants that I had. And down here, I planted some extra snapdragons that I had. I think that it's way past the season for those snapdragons, but I can put them in the ground and see if I get flowers, or I can put them in the compost and get nothing. So I decided to put them in the ground and just see what happens with them. And then here, I planted another black seedless watermelon. And the idea is for this to come up and then just sprawl all along the back wood chips, whichever way it wants to go. And at the base of this tree right here, this plant right here is borage. And that was the one that Andrew picked up at the farmer's market. So he planted that there at the base of that tree. And we'll talk about that tree next. So this tree behind the now tomato trellis, brand new tomato trellis, is a Honeycrisp apple. And this was one that came with the house, but we did move it, and it seems pretty happy in the spot. Last week, these flowers were big and beautiful, and now they look like they're done. And so we should be getting a couple apples on here soon. Here's one of our blueberry plants. This one's in the back, so we don't usually get to see it, but it is looking pretty good. All of these looked a lot more yellow and had very few leaves. We bought them with us from our last house. We had basically bought them at the beginning of last year, planted them, and then dug them up a couple months later when we moved. So they had a rough time, but anyway, they are looking pretty happy now. Here are more of our blueberry bushes. So they're all in this bed here, all along here, and they're all looking really happy, really good. Another thing Andrew started to do this week was he started to build out future beds for this perennial garden. And so this bed right here is going to be more acid loving plants because of how we're going to fertilize these blueberries here. So the plan is to put other plants in here who are also acid loving, or in general just don't care that much, to kind of fill this out and also just kind of grow with the blueberries as the blueberries grow. And then here is our other Honeycrisp apple that came with the house, and this one we didn't move, so you can see some of these flowers are drying out also, but some of them are still really pretty. And this one has a lot more flowers on it. And you can see here's more of the future beds that Andrew has started to build out. This is his brainchild and his kind of design project, and the perennial belt was really, it's his baby, and so this is his creative space. So however he wants to do it is how we're going to do it, and so far it's looking really cool. I'm liking how this is going to turn out. The idea he had here with this stump was, it's not a great sitting stump because you can see all that sap on it, but his idea here was to put in perennials and all of that kind of stuff, and then do some sort of like statue or art feature or something like that here. So I think that'll be really cool. Then as we go down here past the beds that he built, I did one more tomato trellis right here. And this one has a couple, these are Roma tomatoes, so those are those determinate ones that are probably going to get about 4 to 6 feet tall. And then I had some extra indeterminate tomatoes. So here, let's see, that's a purple basil. These two are, this one and that one are super sweet 100s. And so those are cherry tomatoes. And then these, where's the tag? Oh, the tag's way down there. So these, I have a couple extra Amish pastes. I have one here. There's one wee little guy right there. I don't know if you can see that, but he's right there. And then there's one here and then one at the end. So there's 4 total of the Amish paste. These are also really good sauce tomatoes, but they are indeterminate, and so these I'm going to prune. They're going to get really, really tall, and I'm going to prune these a certain way, which I'll make videos on later too. One thing to note while we were building these trellis walls up was we used 2 16-foot cattle panels. We put them up on T-posts. There's 3 T-posts on each one, and then we tied them up with zip ties. So one thing is we are going to come back over here and put a lot of wire on it also to hold them up, just because the zip ties, I don't think it's going to last a whole season, especially since these plants get so heavy. And so we are going to reinforce that with wire just to make sure that these stay up. The other thing we did on this trellis was we have this T-post, or this cattle panel, 2 feet off the ground. And the reason why we did that is because we have the indeterminate tomatoes here, and those are going to get really, really tall, and you don't really need the first like 2 feet of the tomato because we're going to be pruning that really heavily, keeping it clear of leaves, and there's not going to be really any fruit growing down there or anything. They're going to get really tall. We've had plants get 8 feet easy. We decided that what we had to do was we wanted to put this one up higher and just have all the indeterminates on this trellis, and then put some of the aromas here that fit, and then all of the aromas on the other side that were going to be shorter, we put them over there. Now, the reason why we decided to do that with this trellis and not the other trellis was because of the height of these T-posts. So we had two T-posts that were 6 feet tall that we put in the ground here. It's these green ones. And then we had a couple that were left over from other trees that we had on the property, and we took them out because those trees didn't need that support anymore. And those T-posts were really usable and great, but they're a lot shorter. They're only about 4 feet. And so when you actually put them in the ground, they're significantly shorter. And so you can see, here, let me show you. So this T-post goes to about like chest height to me. And then this reused one, we didn't put it in as far, but this is still kind of hip height to me. And so this one is just, it's really short, and this was one of the ones that we reused. So basically, what we decided was we couldn't put the cattle panel too high up on the T-posts that we were reusing that were super short, because we didn't want it to become like really top heavy to the point where the T-post wouldn't support it at all and the plants would just topple it over as they got bigger. And so what we did here is we used the two taller T-posts that we had left over that we bought. We used them here so that we could have a higher trellis. And then on the other one, let me go back there and show you. So on this trellis, the one with all of the Roma tomatoes on the side of the house, this one has all shorter T-posts. And so what we did here was, in order to make sure it's not top heavy, and also just because we were gonna try to put this like 1 foot off the ground, but as we were putting it up, it was really hard to put up, and so we decided to just keep it all the way to the base of the to the ground level, and we would just weave these up. This paddle panel is 4 feet tall in this direction, and like I said, these plants, these Roman tomatoes, get between 4 to 6 feet tall, and so they might just end exactly where this cattle panel ends, which would be perfect. Or if they end 2 feet higher than that, it's not that big of a deal, because there's still going to be a lot of plant material at the bottom to kind of hold everything in place, because these we're not going to prune the same way that we would indeterminate tomatoes. So that'll make more sense as the season goes on, and I can show you kind of the comparison of how those tomatoes grow. But that was kind of our thinking on how we ended up with one higher trellis and one that we just kind of put on the ground. Hope that makes sense. Now on to the main part of our garden, which is our raised garden beds. We have 3 4x16 beds here, 3 4x8 beds, and then 3 more 4x16 beds on the other end there. So I'm going to go through these. I'm going to show you the new stuff, and we'll just kind of go through the old stuff. So this should be quicker than last week, because there hasn't been as many new things now that these beds are all planted out. Starting on the end of this first back bed, this is new. This guy came up a couple days ago. This is a zucchini, I believe. Yep. So this is a zucchini. And I think most of our zucchini are up now at this point. I don't know what this is. This is probably a weed, but we'll see. And then this cute little flower here is Sweet Alyssum. And it's supposed to be a really great companion plant for things like squash and tomatoes and stuff like that, because it's a great habitat for beneficial insects like ladybugs. And it spreads a ton. And it has these really cute little white flowers on it. It spreads a ton, but the cool thing is that the roots of this, even though it goes everywhere, it won't actually compete with other plants. And so it just kind of grows around them, and then you can always dig up a part of it and plant something else in if you want to. So I really like Sweet Alyssum. So I put a couple of those everywhere, and we're just kind of let them spread over time. Down here, all the peppers, the miscellaneous peppers, are doing really well. These are all sweet peppers. I have a amaranth here that is doing really well, and that will grow really tall. These things are massive, and it'll, in my mind, it will frame this trellis really nicely. Here we have chamomile and our tomatillos. So let's see how they're doing. So this little guy is a tomatillo, and this little guy is a tomatillo. And then I planted another one here that was itty bitty, and I didn't think it would make it, and it hasn't. But that's okay, because I have 2. So the thing with tomatillos that we found out the hard way last year is you have to have more than one plant. Last year I had one tomatillo plant. It was in a kind of like a half wine barrel planter on the side of the garden. It grew big, it was beautiful, it was covered in flowers, and we just waited for tomatillos and waited and waited and waited. And then I found out in the middle of our waiting that you have to have two plants because they need another plant to basically pollinate each other. And so what I did this year is I planted 4 tomatillo seeds, hoping to get 3 to germinate so that I could get at least 2 to live. And when I first brought all my seeds out to start hardening them off, I only had 1. And I was really sad about that, but I left it. And I just kind of like forgot about it and was, you know, working with the other plants and stuff like that. And so it was just, you know, it was a tray where I had 1 tomatillo plant. I wasn't going to actually put it in the garden or anything like that because it wasn't going to do anything. And then the trays ended up being out for a while longer as the weather warmed up and more of them sprouted. So I ended up with 3, really like 2.5, because the other one was like really small. It hadn't even really come out of the ground yet. But I knew that at that point, if I left it in the trays because I was almost done planting everything out, I would have forgotten about it. It wouldn't have gotten watered. It would have died anyway. So I decided to just try my luck and put them all in here. And it looks like 2 of them are probably going to make it. So that's really exciting. The other thing that I have heard is you probably don't want tomatillos in your garden beds because then you will have about 100 tomatillos in your garden beds all the time. And so I might move these later in the season, but I wanted to get them in a place where they can get strong and get established. The soil is really good so they can get the nutrients that they need. And it's on a watering system, so I don't have to worry about watering it or forgetting to water it. They're just here and they're being taken care of. So far, so good. I have my 2 tomatillo plants. We'll see how this goes this year, but I'll keep you posted. So yeah, anyway, if you are growing tomatillos, make sure that you have 2. That was the lesson I learned last year. Past the little tomatillos here. The rest of the peppers are looking pretty good. And these tomatoes that we have at the end are also looking really good. These, I believe, are Super Sweet 100 cherries. We can go around here and look at the tag. Yep. So I have 4 cherry tomatoes here, 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 and here. And they're looking really healthy. They've gotten a lot greener. They've actually gotten a lot bigger. And so I'm really happy about that. And then we have a little marigold here. Another little pepper because I ran out of places to put them. But everything looks pretty happy over here. Here's all of our garlic that we're going to harvest pretty soon here. A lot of them have at least one yellowing leaf here. And oh, I just tore that off. And I heard that you're supposed to harvest it, or you know it's ready, when the bottom 3 leaves are yellow. So some of them have like bottom 2 leaves yellow, but they have a little bit of time left. And then these peas that we have here, our sacrificial peas, are actually giving us peas. So I have to come out here in the next couple days, probably tomorrow, and pick all of the peas that I see on here. But yeah, it's nice that we actually got something out of these because these were definitely written off as goners. There's a Senora zinnia that I planted here that's been eaten by something. So I gotta check that out. Oh, right here, I forgot. This is an Armenian cucumber, and I transplanted this from the other side of the garden, and they don't, squash and cucumber and all that stuff, they don't transplant very well. They don't like having their roots disturbed, and I definitely disturbed these because it was growing right next to another one. But I decided to give it a shot, and then if it died, I would just put another seed in. But this one is doing pretty well. Now, I put another one right across the hallway here, over here, and this one has struggle bust. So there it is right there. It had leaves on it when I put it in here. It no longer has leaves on it. So I'm probably going to give it another week to see if it makes a comeback, but after that I'll put another seed here. So it was definitely just a test. Oh, and then here's more peas. Well, before I get distracted, let's go back. So that is the rest of this first bed. There's that amaranth we looked at. Down here, I planted honey nut on this trellis. That's not honey nut. That is a pea plant that got buried. So the honey nut hasn't come up yet. In the middle here, I don't remember what this is. Is this basil? Oh yeah, that's basil. And here on this side, I planted more Blue Lake pole beans here. Now in the middle bed, I did noodle beans on the trellis here, all along this side, and I put a Thai basil in the middle here. And then what did I put over here? It's probably a honey nut. Yeah, there's another honey nut seed over there. So this will come up in the next couple days, hopefully, or in the next couple weeks. There's more. These peas are actually covered in a good amount of peas too. So this is exciting that we have this many to harvest. And there's peppers in the middle here. This trellis, what did I do? I think this was a watermelon. Oh no, this was a cucumber. So I tried a telegraph improved cucumber over here, and there is a purple basil in the middle right there. And then this is that Armenian cucumber that I just showed you that I transplanted that has had a really rough time. So in last week's video, I talked about how the telegraph improved cucumber and the Parisian pickling cucumber, I was saying Persian, that's not right. Parisian pickling cucumber are two really popular cucumber varieties, but they don't really do well in our climate because it gets really hot here. But I keep testing them because I think that there is a sweet spot window of when we can plant them and get a harvest off of them in time. Now, that being said, I think we might be past that window again, but I figured I wanted to try anyway. So the reason why I decided to also put those over here as a tester is because we actually get a lot more shade on these 3 beds because we have our big trees shading them in the morning on this side, which is east, and then on the west side we have a neighbor's building that is shading them from the hottest part of the afternoon really into the evening. And so in general, these beds are shaded for more hours than the beds on the far end way back there are. And so I wanted to see if that kind of microclimate would be better for these cucumbers. So that's another like mini test that I'm doing this year. We'll see what happens. But that was my thought process around that and why I decided to, even though these typically don't do well for us at all, that's why I decided to test them here, because I want to be able to compare the plants in these beds and those beds, because we might just decide that, hey, as long as we grow those in these beds here, they do perfectly fine, and that would be really good to know. And you don't really know until you try it. So we're trying it this year. All right, so next to the very sad Armenian cucumber, we have another amaranth that's gotten pretty big, some peppers, some chamomile, and this. So that is exciting. It's a good handful of peas right there. And that's way more than I thought we would get at all from any of these plants. So that's pretty exciting there. The 2 big tomatoes that I got from the farmer's market are doing really well. This one is a Hungarian heart and it is flowering, which is always good. And then this one is I think yellow brandywine. Yeah, yellow brandywine, and it is also flowering. So these are way farther ahead than the little puny plants that I started this year. All of my plants were behind this year. I was actually surprised about my tomatoes and how small they were, but I have a couple ideas for how to troubleshoot that for next year. Here's the back of those snap pea plants, and there's a lot more food on this side. I have peppers here, a Moulin Rouge zinnia there, a honey nut seed here that hasn't come up yet, a dahlia in the middle. Then I think this one is a yellow watermelon. Yes, so this is another experiment. I saved these seeds from a couple years ago. I have no idea if this is going to produce anything or not, but I wanted to give it a shot. And then I planted a autumn beauty sunflower seed right here, which is gonna hopefully get really tall and frame this trellis. And there's a couple more pepper plants, and there is a zucchini here. Might be a yellow squash actually. Yeah, so this is a yellow squash. It hasn't come up yet, but it is surrounded by that sweet alyssum and a Thai basil there, and a couple more flowers. So there is a marigold there, and then chamomile there. In this head here, we have, I planted a pepper there because I was really just tight on space, so I put them anywhere I could find them. These carrots, we tried to pull one the other day, and it's a lot more foliage than it is carrot, but we're probably going to pull these in the next probably week or so. But these are doing really well. Oh, this marigold is about to flower, so that's exciting. But these are peppers. They're doing really well. Nothing really new here. On this trellis, I planted another one of those yellow watermelon seeds that I saved. We'll see if it comes up. That is another basil. And then here, what did I put? Honey nut. So there's a honey nut that'll hopefully come up in the next week there. And then the rest of this bed is mostly just peppers and things. A couple garlics that are getting pretty close here. And then these are the best looking pea plants out of our old pea plants. So we'll be harvesting off of those also. And I think over here, oh yeah, here we go. We had another zucchini sprout. So we'll have another zucchini plant here. And as usual, it's right next to its sweet alyssum. And then I decided to do a teddy bear sunflower seed here. So this one is supposed to have multiple blooms come off of it, and they're like the fuzzy ones, which I think are really cool. I'm obsessed with sunflowers. They're my favorite flower. So I've never grown those before. I'm excited to see what the teddy bear ones look like. Next up, we have our 3 middle 4x8 beds, which is our cut flower garden. And these are the beds that I told you I mulched last week, and I've just been kind of watching to see if anything looks sick in them, especially these tomatoes over here. And I mean, so far so good, guys. These tomatoes have gotten huge compared to the size they were when I put them in here. So far it doesn't look like the straw is affecting them at all, and they look really happy. And there's a little marigold there. These tomatoes, let me actually look at the tag. Okay, so yeah, these 3 are Roma tomatoes. So those are determinate tomatoes. They're going to get about 4 to 6 feet tall, and we are going to Florida weave these with these 2 T-posts. And I'll make a video too when we trellis all of our tomatoes, all the different ways that we have to trellis them. I'll make a video on how I do all of that. Here are our cosmos. I still have not I have not pinched these, which I need to do in the next couple days here because they're all starting to flower at the top. But I need to pinch those. We had a couple places where the plants died, and so I went in and put different kinds of sunflowers in to replace them. This one has a Zohar sunflower in it. I think that blue tag does also. This is a straw flower, and this is a straw flower. Yeah. This is a larkspur that we got for free at a garden event we went to. So we'll see how that does. And then there's a couple zinnias in this bed too. The reason why we really wanted to mulch these beds in particular was this bed. We have struggled so much in the last 2 years with grass coming up very aggressively. In this bed, there's some in this one too, but this bed is really intense. The grass is crazy. So you can see it actually coming up along the edges. And this is the bed that has the straw, and it has kind of a very thin fabric underneath it. But we're going to leave it for this year and just try and pick as much grass as we can. But I think what I'll do in the winter season is not use this bed, and we'll probably like tarp the whole thing to kill the grass. But it's the worst in this bed here. Here is the middle bed. Here's our Cosmo that was looking really beautiful last week. It is on its way out, so I'll be cutting that now. I feel good about it, but I got to see it and see how pretty it was, so I feel good about letting it go now and pinching the rest. I just wanted to give it a chance. We have more different kinds of zinnias here, and then we have 3 more tomato plants here. Let's look at this tag. So these are gold nugget tomatoes. These are a really nice yellow variety. They are a little bit bigger than a cherry, but they're kind of in that same bag. And these are also determinants. And they're looking pretty good. I do see that these leaves are curling a little bit, but we also had pretty hot days in the last couple days. So I'm going to keep an eye on these and see how they're doing. This one's curling like a little bit too, but they don't look too bad to me yet. So we'll keep an eye on these. And then our third flower bed. So we have zinnias, we have amaranth. What else is in here? Snapdragons. I think there's basil. There's more zinnias. There's dahlias here, and then sunshine marigolds, sunshine orange marigolds. So this bed looking pretty good, all in all. Nothing really new here. Our last 3 16-foot beds. So just to orient ourselves a little bit, here are 2 citrus trees. So that is the navel orange tree, and that's the cutie tree. And then here we have the new tomato trellis that has the indeterminate tomatoes on it, like the Amish paste and those super sweet 100s that's higher off the ground. So in this bed, not much new has popped up, but things are definitely looking really good. This is a zucchini. This thing has grown so much in 1 week. Zucchini plants are always really satisfying, especially when you just direct sow them into the ground, because they come up really green, really beautiful, and then they grow really fast. So it makes you feel good about yourself. Then here is some sweet alyssum that has also just gotten way bigger than when I planted it. This was a little guy when I put it in. And it's both of these, they're looking really nice and lovely too. All of the peppers on this side were planted out about a week to a week and a half before the ones on the other side, and they're all way darker green, which is really promising. Here's the little okra. It's getting true leaves. And okra gets really big, and so what we did here was I planted different basils. It's sad, this one died. This one was looking really good, but it didn't make it. I think it was one day where it just got too hot and didn't have enough water. But I planted different herbs in between to kind of grow in a base layer underneath the basil. And I was hoping that these peppers would be shaded by the basil underneath also a little bit. But I'll plant a new basil there. And here's one that's doing really well. That's an okra and a purple basil. Now here is, pretty sure that's a weed now, but I planted another basil here. This was the one that didn't come up. So I put another plant there. This is Thai basil. It's really happy. And yeah, it just kind of goes on like that. And there's another basil plant, or another okra plant. So everything in this bed looks really good. It's getting really big. This is a sunshine orange marigold. Another sweet alyssum that's way bigger than when I planted it. This guy has leaves as big as my hand now. So that's really cool. Oh, yay! This is what I want. This right here is why I planted this sweet alyssum. Let's see if you can see it. Underneath this leaf right here is a ladybug. That's what I want. I want you to live there. Enjoy it. And here we have a junior yellow sunflower. It looks like this is about to flower, which is kind of sad because these are actually supposed to be a lot thicker and bigger than these. but I think I just had these in our trays too long, and so this is it's kind of done. But I think I'll probably put more sunflower seeds around it. These get like 2 feet tall, so I'm gonna put probably more sunflower seeds around it so that I can have more of a succession. But yeah, sunflowers are my favorite, so I gotta have them everywhere. Next to that, we have an Italian pepper that I saved from seed, a habanada I saved from seed, another marigold. It's looking really happy. I think this one is one that I also saved from seeds. And peppers are getting a little bit bigger, which is nice, a little bit greener. This amaranth is looking amazing. Something took a really big bite out of it, but that's pretty. I'm into that. Here is a Armenian cucumber. This is one of the places where I took another seed that was growing right next to it, or another seedling that was growing right next to it, and moved it, transplanted it. So this one, I was able to keep it still enough where it was happy, because these were growing like right next to each other. So this one doesn't seem too affected, but that other one made it and one did not. The Telegraph Improved Cucumber, this one's looking really good. It's getting its true leaves. This is a true leaf, and then these two bottom ones, those are just the first leaves that come up when a plant is first popping out of the ground, and then usually the true leaves will come up after that set, and they'll be the next set, and these leaves will look like the rest of the plant. So that's how you can tell what the true leaves are, because usually a lot of plants have first leaves that are kind of rounded like this, and then they'll have a completely different looking leaf that comes up after. There's a Moulin Rouge zinnia here. And then these peas, I don't think these are going to get a chance to do anything. We'll see what they do this week because we're going to have cooler weather. Last week was just way too hot for them, but I wanted to give them a chance. These are the peas that we used in our soil contamination tests, if you remember. And then here are the other ones. They are getting longer, I will say that. You got to kind of help them along a little bit. See, they'll go along the ground and then just go attached to each other. Oh no, guy, live over here. You'll be happier here. So yeah, we'll give him a shot. There's another zinnia. And this one's big. This is our Armenian cucumber here. This one's really happy. That's exciting. And there's a little plant there. It's probably a basil. I don't really remember. And this one, oh, this is 2 also. I need to thin these. Yeah. These are 2, I think these are the Parisian. Yeah. These are the Parisian gherkins. And there's 2 little seeds right next to each other because I wanted to make sure that we got one. And I'll just cut one of those off at the base of the soil and let the other one grow. Here's the sunflower. Again, it's supposed to be a lot thicker than this before it starts flowering, but I might just put another seed in and get a little succession. It's a habanada or a scotch bonnet, but you can see it's starting to get leaves that are darker than the yellow ones than when I put it out, which is really nice. Another sunflower. Ooh, this is good. Chamomile is really bushing out. I like that. So that looks really good. This amaranth is also bigger. These are our noodle beans here. They look really happy. And then this butternut squash has still not come up. It might be because the seeds are too old. So I might put something else here because it hasn't come up on the other side either. And that seed packet is a few years old. So I might put something else here just to make sure that we get something. I put a sunflower where this blue tag is here. And then there's a little bitty pepper right there. But it's kicking along. This is a dahlia that I grew from seeds. So you have some more peppers in the middle of these trellises here because it's going to be kind of hard to get to and harvest. I just put flowers. So there's a zinnia there and then the rest are just straw flowers. And the idea there is they can either pop out between the plants on the trellises and that would be really pretty. Or if it gets to a point where they're completely blocked out and you can't see them all at all, I'm okay with that because it's flowers and not food. So that's why I put those there instead of any other plants. These are Black Lake pole beans. They're a lot bigger than last week, which is exciting. We have honey nut here that is doing really well. Amaranth. I love how big everything is in this bed. Everything's gotten so much bigger than last week, which is really exciting. And then we have our final bed. So this chamomile is putting off a lot more flowers, getting a little more bushy, which is nice. Over there we have a yellow squash that finally sprouted. Here, I think this is probably a honey nut also. This is our other honey nut. And Blue Lake pole beans. Another sunflower here. More amaranth that is starting to spread here. Another yellow squash. This guy's a little bit smaller, but still looking good. The amaranth, you can see how this stuff just explodes and then it just goes everywhere. And more peppers. So that's an empty spot that has a butternut squash that I'm probably just going to fill with something else. And more noodle beans. On this side of the trellis, these little guys. These are peppers, but they're super tiny and it looks like something is starting to eat them a little bit. But they're still growing. They're still kicking in there. This is a Thai basil. I want that to be in this corner and just spill over and out. This is a weed. We have, let's see, another marigold, a junior sunflower that is about to flower, so I'll put more seeds there because they're supposed to get bigger. Still happy about the little sunflower though. And then more peppers here. Here we have our flower border separating our sweet peppers from our hot peppers. So there is a marigold here that looks like it is about to flower. And then back here, these are all snapdragons. And I'm probably going to put some sunflowers or something else back here too, just because it's not the season for these guys. And then we get into our hot peppers. So over here we have poblanos and jalapenos, and that's all the peppers here. And I don't think I said this, but in the rest of the garden, the varieties that we have as far as sweet peppers are habanadas, sweet bonnets, Italian peppers that I saved from seeds, and what's the other one? Oh, Ajvarskis, which are new to us, but we've heard really great things about. So yeah. And then down here, there is that yellow squash that I pointed out. So that's it for this week's garden tour. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always really fun for me to share this with you guys and to just kind of give me a chance to notice what's new in the garden. Before the garden tours, I don't do my usual walk through the night before. And so it's fun to kind of see things for the first time with you guys. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this tour. And if you do, please let me know in the comments below. I'd also love to know what you're growing in your garden, whether it's, a garden like this, a garden bigger than this, or, a patio garden. I love all of those things. So yeah, let me know in the comments below and take care. Have a good rest of your weekend. Bye.